So good evening, everybody. My name is Avinash Gupta. I'm the CEO of Dun & Bradstreet India. I'm based in Bombay, but always a pleasure to be in Delhi. So good to see you all. I've been listening to some of the chats, so a lot of the comments which I was going to make have been covered by Mr. Gupta and then Mr. Shetty. And listening to Mrs. Sinha as well of ITDC. So this is our 17th PSU and Government Summit. We've been in India for 30 years. I've been in DNB myself for coming up to 5 years. So I've done this a few times, but DNB has been around close to 2 centuries now. So she was talking about 60 years for ITDC and 70 years for Ashok. So it's interesting how quickly time moves. So DNB has been close to 185 years in existence. And in our coffee table books, we say that, there were 5 US presidents who used to work for Dun & Bradstreet, including, believe it or not, Abraham Lincoln. So that's the history book. So I joke with my colleagues that, if we had met maybe a century and a bit ago, we would have had Abraham Lincoln sitting in the room as well. So he was the first one, and the guys, there were 4 who came after him. So good to be here. And, it's, I guess, as the speaker from Iron Mountain also said, there's a little bit of PSU in all of us. Obviously, some of us grew up, as she said, in colonies and stuff where parents worked in PSUs. And I guess even if your parents didn't work in PSUs, you interacted a lot with the PSU world, either for transport or services or anything else. So it's always a good remembrance. And with some of the changes Mr. Gupta and Mr. Shetty talked about, hopefully there's a lot more good to come as well, as you rightly pointed out, in specific sectors and specific things to be looked at. But the theme for this event, we pick a theme every year. So the theme for this year, obviously, with what's happening in the world, and a lot of people touched upon it, the digital state. And I think, in terms of, you pick your spots, as you said, and India has kind of picked its spot quite well, that, digitization, faster, better, quicker, well done, could possibly accelerate growth for all of us, corporates, personal, and really in an exponential way. So when you do travel over, and the ITDC was travel, so talking of travel, I just came back 2 weeks ago from the US. In the US, you'll find it very difficult to believe, but there is no chip and pin still. You put a card and it just goes through. There is no authentication, there is no signature, there is no pin which you put in. Forget two-factor authentication, OTP and stuff is a new thing. The other day there was another colleague in town, and I told him, give me a minute because I need to share this OTP with my guy. He said, what is that? So I think, digitization and I guess the transformation and the digital pivot will really depend on how all of us grow, PSUs grow, India grows. And, maybe just taking an aside from Mrs. Sinha said 5 S's, you talked a little bit about stuff. Maybe it's Friday evening, so, give me a license to share a couple of other random thoughts as well, although we are out of time, so I'll be pretty quick. So maybe I had 6 T's in mind when she said 5 S's. I'll say I'll talk of 6 T's. I think you touched upon the first one, which was trade. What's happening in trade. I guess nobody knows what's going to happen around trade and tariffs. Yesterday there were some more tariffs put on branded pharmaceuticals, furniture. So nobody knows, I think, where it's going to end, but hopefully it will settle. It will settle somewhere, because the ambiguity and the volatile nature of it makes it very difficult. If you talk to real corporates who export out of India, large corporates, it's a nightmare right now. Shipping's the least of the problems maybe right now, And the second, which we all talked about and talk about every day, is technology. So, the pace of technology, the pace of everything, the investment into technology. So, I mean, some of you might follow the amount of money which is getting invested in this whole AI space. It's crazy amounts of money. So, when Oracle does a deal to provide data center capacity to OpenAI, OpenAI is willing to pay $50 billion for that data center capacity. I mean, this is unheard of stuff, and that's the amount of investment which is happening. So how do you compete on that? And capital obviously is the most important thing for all of us. I think you touched upon lack of private sector capital, or some of the speaker touched upon that. I think the third T, which keeps me awake personally, is also what's happening in the whole capital markets. I can call it treasury. I call it treasury. The whole confusion around currencies, the assumption that one of the things the US would like to do, the White House would like to do, is to devalue the dollar, which is what has happened at, if you look at history in time, the devaluation of the dollar has helped that country, and maybe that's the intent. And all of us can be assured that, we might hate the dollar, we might love the dollar, but nobody can do without the dollar. So if you talk to anybody in the financial markets, there will be complete chaos if dollar was not the reserve currency. And that's going to remain in my lifetime. I don't think that's going to change. The fourth T, I would say, is tax. So every country wants to tax you more and keep more for themselves. So I don't know if you guys recall, Donald Trump, for a brief while, maybe in May or June, said that all capital coming into the US will also be taxed. So, and there's so much money which is invested in the US. I have some investments in the US, it'll be crazy paying tax on that. So the whole issue about tax, where you get taxed, how much a country is willing to tax you. France wants to tax the wealthy more. The British are having a problem because they started taxing what they call the non-doms. So it's an issue in India as well, obviously. And I think the 50, I would say, I think you referred to it, Mr. Gupta, is territorial disputes, or maybe you did. The whole issue about territorial disputes. There was happening in our neighborhood. I think the gentleman Yashwant talked about Operation Sindoor. There's a big war happening in Europe. I think, we don't see it very closely, but it is terrible. I sit on a board of a company here, a railway company here, which has a joint venture with a company in Slovakia. The Slovakians own 20% of this railway company in India. There are no people in Slovakia to fight the war anymore. They just keep shooting drones and missiles, but there is really nobody to fight. Even the Russians possibly don't have, but they just have a bigger captive audience and a bigger place to maybe source from. So this whole bit of territorial disputes, where is it going to end, and how long is it going to linger, is really also something, all of us will feel for a long time. And the sixth one in my 6 T's really is the most confusing one for me, is just what is truth. I mean, in the good old days, there were facts, and you and I could debate on the basis of some facts. But now, what is fact? If somebody some big president says this is fact, it becomes the fact for a large part of the people. And then people act on that as well. So, it's a really confusing situation, and I think, given all of that, I think the PSUs are doing extremely well. And, all of us kind of worry and think about that a lot. So I think on the PSU side, you quoted a lot of stuff. So I had some stuff to talk about clearly in terms of, it's a large part of the GDP of the country still, despite 14%, a lot of investment, 40 billion capital invested, large market capitalization, huge amount of net worth, and obviously contributing a significant sum into the national exchequer still. So long that may continue. And obviously the whole business of digitization can help, new industries can help in terms of, re-leveraging, restarting new things. And I think the whole issue of either it's government investment or it's government-induced investment. So what is the US doing right now? US is saying, Trump said last night that branded pharmaceuticals will have a tariff, but your tariff will be exempt if you started building capacity in the US. You set up capacity in the US, I will excuse your tariffs. So same thing with, with shipping capacity. They're so keen to that, they build their naval ships in the US and their naval ships are not built in Japan and in Korea. You set up capacity. So either it's the government doing it or the government inducing it. Both lead to the same objective, but whichever is more efficient and whichever gives a better ROC, which Mr. Gupta talked about, would be something to think about. So I think those were some of my summary kind of comments. I'm around, so I can chat some more later. But coming back to what this evening is all about, why you are here, and it's so good to have you here. Obviously we are hoping that we will facilitate most of you, today with our Dun & Bradstreet Public Sector Excellence Award. This year we honor more than close to 30 central and state PSUs across various sectors, and we'll recognize some of the exceptional government digital initiatives as well. So congratulations to all the winners in advance. As Mr. Shetty said, I hope some of you win this year, most of you win next year hopefully as well. But it's clearly owed to your dedication and hard work which sets the high standard of excellence. We know how difficult it is to work in the private sector. I mean, I've always worked in the private sector. I can just imagine how difficult it is to pull things together in the public sector when you got so much more stakeholders to play around and work with. So in terms of the selection, obviously you met Mr. Gupta and Mr. Shetty. You heard them as well, who really helped in pulling this whole thing together. Mr. Shetty, I had the chance to meet in our Bombay office I think 2 years ago. So thank you again for your time and candor in pulling this together along with my colleagues. And we really hope that everybody will be happy with that outcome. And obviously all of this is going to be pulled together in our publication, which we call the Dun & Bradstreet Rethinking the Future of Indian Public Sector, which I guess what you touched upon, and we'll hopefully release that today. That features approximately 200 central and 100 state PSUs in this annual edition of the comprehensive overview. And I congratulate all the companies which are featured in this year's list. And clearly, as I said, that I hope that they do a lot more in terms of ROCE, return a lot more capital to the stakeholder, create a lot more jobs, create a lot more competitive advantage, not only in the individual sector, but for the country as well. And obviously, I think you said about the creation of employment, growth. When we see a lot more, the FTAs being signed are quite interesting. One of the things in the UK FTA, for example, is that if an Indian company can become a supplier into the UK government, and that's going to be the same way around as well. A UK company will be classified as a make in India to even qualify for government contracts. So I think trade has its own advantages and disadvantages, but for the right kind of folks, there could be a bigger market, there could be better sourcing to be had not only locally and even internationally. Obviously in India we see a lot more sourcing happening from the MSMEs, although the classification of the MSMEs has changed. So a lot of the larger companies also are called MSMEs now. So in terms of Dun & Bradstreet, obviously, as I said, we've been here 30 years. We helped set up CIBIL, what is called CIBIL now. So that was, we had a 10% stake. We were the original founders of CIBIL, which we sold. We have a rating agency, which is also doing a lot with the PSUs. We ourselves do a lot more with the PSUs and the government, and we wish we can do a lot more. And really our mantra really is to help you take better decisions giving data and analytics. We have a lot of global data. We have this concept of the DUNS number. We have around 620 million of these DUNS numbers globally, which is a very large number, which helps us give you that view. And in India, we built this DUNS database, which is a unique identifier of around 42 million, which allows us to keep that data, mine that data, analyze that data, and give you a view. So we hope we can help you take better decisions, faster decisions, right decisions, and decisions which help you do things in a better manner. And we worked a lot, obviously, with the government and with the PSU world. We work with a lot of the state governments. We empanel with most of the ministries which are relevant to us. We partner with people like ONDC, NSIC, SIDBI. We try to put out our thought leadership like what we are doing here today. We put out various indices which help the government take a view on what's happening in the SME sector, what's happening in the sustainability sector, which is equally important. We obviously work with people like Niti Aayog. We work a lot with people also on the agriculture side, believe it or not, in terms of the Small Farmers Agribusiness Consortium and the Northeast Regional Agricultural Marketing Corporation in terms of finding new clients, new markets, who do you go sell to. So that's our business, that's what we do for a living, but for today it's about celebrating you. It's celebrating the successes of most of you, and I hope we can continue doing this in partnership with you, with your support for years going ahead as well. So maybe I'll close here. Thank you. I'm always afraid of the guillotine, and the lady having a guillotine is doubly afraid. So I definitely don't want her to come and tell me. So I'll conclude before that. Thank you.